Probably Star Trek. Alright, you probably wanted more explanation than that. So, living in a fictional universe, it's an interesting question, but it brings up a lot of other questions as to quite how that works. As Dave mentioned in his video, most fictional universes revolve around a central set of protagonists. And so the first question is, are you one of those protagonists, or are you just someone else in the universe? And I would generally approach this question as if I was going to be someone else within that universe. But then the question becomes, who are you within that universe? Do you have any choice over that? Am I just me as I am now, inserted to that universe, or can I change any aspects or choose any aspects? Do I have my 21st century knowledge there, or am I just some other equivalent who grew up in that universe? Because, like, if you insert me as I am now into some kind of fantasy universe, generally most of which are sort of kind of medieval, then, you know, I'll be dead due to lack of insulin. At which point you can start saying things like, well, in some universes there may be magical solutions to that. Or perhaps you can say, if you were you but didn't have diabetes, but then that's a whole can of what kind of exceptions do you make. But in general, though, while I like to watch and read all sorts of swords and sorcery type fantasy, when it comes to actually living in one of those worlds, I don't think I would actually enjoy that. If I'm still anything close to me, then I'm not going to be some knight going off on adventures. I don't know, I'm probably going to end up, I don't know, something like a blacksmith who just works on stuff all day and then eats terrible food and nothing really happens to. And that sounds, you know, kind of boring. If you change yourself in that universe enough that, you know, you can do sword fighting and horse riding and going into battle and fighting dragons or whatever, then it's not really you living in that universe anymore. I think, particularly as someone who loves technology, is that for a universe to be interesting to live in, it's going to have to be a technologically advanced one, and therefore we're talking science fiction rather than fantasy. That brings up many of the same questions. It's like the Mass Effect universe is incredibly interesting, but if I'm not going to be Commander Shepard, then what is my role in that universe going to be? Do I change myself enough that I can be another N7 member and go off on my own separate adventures? Or am I just some kind of programmer dude who lives on the Citadel, goes around in circles all day, and is basically exactly the same as I am now, just with a few extra biotic additions? Or maybe I'm an engineer on a distant research station, and the only reason I become part of the story is because everyone gets murdered by the Geth and Commander Shepard comes on to figure out what happened. It seems like so many science fiction settings just are very dystopian. Do I love the feel and the aesthetic of the Fallout universe? Absolutely, but to actually live in a nuclear wasteland, I imagine would actually be pretty difficult and a hard life. I'd probably just end up as some scribe for the Brotherhood of Steel, decoding old documents and not really ever leaving a bunker. And, you know, obviously I'm a massive Star Wars fan, but it seems like for your average Joe in that universe, they tend to not leave the planet they were born on very often. Throughout that universe, it seems like it's only the extra special that get to leave the planet and go on adventures. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I think the most interesting for me, presuming I'm someone basically like me but who grew up in that universe, it's going to have to be Star Trek. It's one of the few well-made, well-fleshed out sort of utopian futures. Although, of course, again, that's with the caveat that I grew up within the United Federation of Planets. There's lots of useful technologies, particularly transporters. There's interplanetary opportunities of everything you could imagine. If you're within Federation space, there's not a whole lot of danger, but if that's the kind of thing you want, it is available there if you go out and search for it. There's no worries about food, there's no worries about money, it's just worrying about yourself and self-improvement. And while maybe there is a little appeal in being some kind of augmented cyberpunk hacker in some kind of dystopian universe, I can go and play that on the holodeck sometimes if I'm in Star Trek. So I think, for me at least, that is the best option for fictional universes to live in. What are your thoughts? Leave those down in the comments below as usual, and Matt, we will see you tomorrow.